Hello everyone, it's Jamal Thomas. Welcome to the Progressive Soapbox. And let me make sure my signal is right because I am getting weirdness already. So let's do this. Hello everyone, it's Jamal Thomas. Welcome to the Progressive Soapbox. Yeah, I had to start over. My signal was screwing up, and I don't want to do this thing where I stop in the middle in order to fix my signal. So I fixed my signal in the beginning and redid it. Hope everyone is doing okay. It's a little bit early for the show. Usually I do the show between 5 and 6. And to be honest, I've been doing the show like throughout the course of the day. I'm thinking that it's probably going to be standard that I do a show throughout the course of the day under normal circumstances, but between 5 and 6 under definitely a show, my main show between 5 and 6, but throughout the day. And to be honest, I have to be honest, I can pop in pretty much any time. But at the very least, expect me between 5 and 6. While at the same token, being not particularly surprised if I show up at other times. That being said, that's far too long to explain something very simple. That's far too much time. Hopefully everybody's doing okay. I want to thank everybody for one, all the people who support the channel in whatever way you support the channel. Either donations or either sharing the videos and liking the videos. Thank you very much. Now, beyond that part, let's have some fun. There was amazing news that came out of Congress. The Do Nothing Congress. That was amazing news. The House Judiciary Committee is subpoenaing the FBI for information related to the Clinton Foundation. The Clinton case, meaning how did you guys let Clinton walk? The main thing. Also dealing with McCabe, dealing with FISA warrant abuses. They're doing an expansive probe into the FBI's handling of all of these things revolving around Clinton's email investigation. Good. Absolutely good. Now, before we start for this, I want to show a clip that I've shown multiple times before, so if you've seen it, I'm sorry. But I'm trying to do this video from the perspective of if you were just coming to this, and if you, for whatever reason, maybe you're a Democrat, maybe you're a wayward independent, you're thinking to yourself, the Republican Party looks for any and everything that they can kick dust about. These are the same guys that screamed about Benghazi for God knows how long. These guys, they would choose anything. They went after Bill Clinton, they hounded Bill Clinton, they impeached Bill Clinton over a bull job. These guys can't be trusted. They are political hacks. And you would be right. Republican Party are political hacks. They do look for ridiculousness when they're going after Democrats, and they do look for alternate realities at times in order to go after certain political opponents. That is absolutely true. It doesn't necessarily mean that everything that they bring up, however, is wrong. And just like you have clocks, broken clocks, that are right twice a day, well, this is the Republican Party's turn to be right for this twice a day. This is a real issue. I didn't come to this issue thinking this was a real issue. I came to this issue thinking, oh my God, here's another goddamn Benghazi. What changed my mind on this was Comey lying about it. Like, prosecutors like to use the term that lying is cognizance of guilt. Like, if you say something that you know is false, why are you telling me something that you know is false? What are you hiding, or what are you trying to cover up that you don't want me to necessarily know? Well, and to make my point, let's take a look at this video. Like I said, I've shown this video multiple times before, but I love this video because in this video, Comey is not telling the truth, while at the exact same time saying how he needs to be radically transparent. Well, I'm adding radically, but saying there needs to be open and honest transparency, while at the same token, at the very moment, not being honest with the public. Let's take a look at this. My signal is a little weird, guys. I may have to flip it. Good. Now, it's saying that the connection is reestablished, so I'm going to take that as a word of God that the connection is reestablished. All right. So like I said before, just to reiterate, the thing that changed my mind on this was Comey. Now, it's true that I want Hillary Clinton locked up because I wanted Bernie Sanders to succeed the primary and it looked like that was going to be the only way to get past it. Yes, that's a horrible reason for wanting somebody put in prison, but fair enough. Here's what it is. I'm a horrible human being. What changed my mind, though, was this. This press conference that Comey gave here is amazing. And it's amazing on two main accounts. A, he's saying, I need to be transparent. And B, while at the exact same time him saying I need to be transparent, he's not telling the truth. Let's take a look at what I'm talking about, and I'll make my point.
And of the actors potentially involved, we assess we would be unlikely to see such direct evidence. We do assess that hostile actors gained access to the private commercial email accounts of people with whom Secretary Clinton was in regular contact from her personal account. We also assess that Secretary Clinton's use of a personal email domain was both known by a large number of people and readily apparent. She also used her personal email extensively while outside the United States, including sending and receiving work-related emails in the territory of sophisticated adversaries. Given that combination of factors, we assess it is possible that hostile actors gained access to Secretary Clinton's personal email account. So that's what we found. Finally, with respect to our recommendation to the Department of Justice. In our system, the prosecutors make the decisions about whether charges are appropriate based on evidence that the FBI helps collect. Although we don't normally make public our recommendations to the prosecutors, we frequently make recommendations and engage in productive conversations with prosecutors about what resolution may be appropriate given the evidence. In this case, given the importance of the matter, I think unusual transparency is in order. Although there is evidence of potential violations of the statutes regarding the handling of classified information, our judgment is that no reasonable prosecutor would bring such a case. Prosecutors necessarily weigh a number of factors before deciding whether to bring charges. There are obvious considerations like the strength of the evidence, especially regarding intent. Responsible decisions also consider the context of a person's actions and how similar situations have been handled in the past. In looking back at our investigations into the mishandling or removal of classified information, we cannot find a case that would support bringing criminal charges on these facts. All the cases prosecuted involved some combination of clearly intentional and willful mishandling of classified information or vast quantities of information exposed in such a way as to support an inference of intentional misconduct or indications of disloyalty to the United States or efforts to obstruct justice. We do not see those things here. To be clear, this is not to suggest that in similar circumstances, a person who engaged in this activity would face no consequences. To the contrary, those individuals are often subject to security or administrative sanctions, but that's not what we're deciding now. As a result, although the Department of Justice makes final decisions on matters like this, we are expressing to Justice our view that no charges are appropriate in this case.
There were a lot of Bernie Sanders supporters who waited with bated breath on every word that Comey was saying. Because understand, Comey has said some amazing things in that statement. Hillary Clinton was interacting, using her email, her own private emails, even though she was using work. She was doing work in areas with sophisticated adversaries. I love the way their terminology on this. But essentially, people who knew what they were doing and could get their hands on whatever she was sending across her private server. That's the first point, meaning other people got hands on the information of the state, of the United States, that Hillary Clinton was not supposed to be sending that information in that particular way. Meaning, it's one thing if they get their hands on information, she's abiding by governmental policies and procedures, and they, pierce the procedures themselves. This is different. This is her using her own private server, regardless of where she is, and him, Comey, making a point of saying, yes, sophisticated adversaries were able to get their hands on information that Hillary Clinton was sending. We have to infer just because they knew what they were doing, and this was a private server, it wasn't secured. And then he says, no reasonable prosecutor. Unusual transparency. Now, you could make an argument from a lawyer's standpoint that We don't necessarily know what he means by unusual. Maybe unusual transparency means no transparency at all. Fair enough, you can make that case. But saying unusual transparency gets across the impression that he's talking about being absolutely open. In this particular case, I think we need to be completely open and honest with the public. But that's not really what he's saying. He's using the term unusual. So, yes, he's trying to mislead with the term unusual. That's the first point. The other point, no reasonable prosecutor. No reasonable prosecutor. What about unreasonable prosecutors? What does Comey mean by reasonable prosecutor? I have no idea what that means. Now, the catch is, no reasonable prosecutor is not true. That's the first part. And the second part is his nailing down this idea of intent. He hammers this idea of intent. And the fact is, Comey hammering this idea of intent is moving the goal line. The question is, would other people, other Americans, that don't have a name of Clinton at the very end, don't have a name of Bush or some other famous, important name, or some kind of politically active name with the sitting president in that particular party, would they be afforded the same luxury? Now, Comey is saying no reasonable prosecutor will bring a case like this. If you find one case, would that not make what Comey just said untrue? And if you find one case, wouldn't it infer one or two things? Either Comey is incompetent or Comey is corrupt. And by corrupt in this very specific case, I mean letting her walk. Letting her walk. He had already said that he was being pushed and massaged by Loretta Lynch in order to talk about the campaign, or talk about the case itself from the perspective of the Clinton campaign. Now, this by itself is just a bogus way of going about this. The government is not belong to the parties. The government is an edifice unto itself. It's this mental fiction of sorts. The government does not necessarily belong to any of the parties. Meaning the government shouldn't be leaning in any direction. If you ask Comey something about the case, Comey's telling you something about the case from the standpoint of the FBI, not from the standpoint of a political actor. Meaning him coming out saying that it's a matter as opposed to an investigation, a criminal investigation where that woman could be put in prison, is somewhat troubling. Somewhat troubling. I wonder what other pressure Loretta Lynch put on Comey. And understand, if she did put pressure on Comey to lean in a particular direction, which we know she did. He just said so, even in his testimony. How much pressure did she put on him? Is that not a fair question? Meaning, if he felt that he was pushed in a particular way and he came to a certain decision for particular reasons that didn't necessarily involve an actual investigation, he would not necessarily come on and tell that in public. Meaning, if you ask Comey that, Comey is disincentivized of being honest and saying, yes, I changed the case based on being pushed from Loretta Lynch. But that being said, in testimony, he did go up to the line of, I did change how I talked about the case. Yes. My point here is, when I started looking at this, I thought Republicans were just dicking around. And then I started thinking from my standpoint of, well, wait a minute. There were other cases. I mean, other people were being prosecuted for much more, other people were not getting the luxuries that Hillary Clinton was getting in this case. We find out later that they didn't even have an investigation. That they came to a conclusion before they even investigated or talked to Hillary Clinton. That's mind-blowing. I have no idea what prosecutor does that. I have zero. I don't know what investigator avoids talking to the person and comes to a conclusion before you even talk to the person who's the subject of that particular investigation. And let's keep going. To make my point clear, peak FBI corruption, meet Brian Nishimura found guilty for removal and retention of classified materials. Now, you just heard what Comey said. Now, the problem with that is, Nishimura was convicted like the year before. Let's see. Right here. Well, and there are two parts. One is intent has nothing to do with it. Intent has nothing to do with it. You heard how hard Comey slammed this idea of intent. Intent has nothing to do with it. Second, Brian Nishimura was convicted for the exact same thing or similar things that Hillary Clinton was given a pass on. Is Comey corrupt or is Comey incompetent? Which one is it? It has to be one or the other. Has to be one or the other. In a scandalous announcement, FBI Director James Comey moments ago said that although there is evidence of potential violations of the statutes regarding the handling of classified materials, and he gave extensive evidence of just that, our judgment is that no reasonable prosecutor will bring such a case. He added that prosecutors necessarily weigh a number of factors before bringing charges. There are obvious considerations like the strength of the evidence, especially regarding intent. Responsible decisions also consider the context of a person's actions and how similar situations have been handled in the past. What is shocking is that the FBI director was clearly ignoring the U.S. Code itself, where in Section 793, subsection, gathering, transmitting, or losing defense information, it makes quite clear that intent is not a key consideration in a case like this when deciding to press charges. To wit, in the cases here, I'm going to put the items in the bottom. What's even more shocking is that according to Comey, we cannot find a case that would support bringing criminal charges on these facts. Well, we did. Here's the FBI itself, less than a year ago, charging one Brian H. Nishimura, 50 of Folsom, who pleaded guilty to unauthorized removal and retention of classified materials without malicious intent. In other words, precisely what the FBI alleges Hillary Clinton did. Again, which one is it? Are you corrupt or is he incompetent? Now, I know people who support Democrats and who are in this kind of Democratic camp have a hard time believing in the corrupt part because that's the wavelength that they're on. But I'm saying for the moment, assume that your wavelength is wrong and assume that these people are political actors. Assume for the moment that you had a Democratic president who picked Loretta Lynch as his attorney general, and assume for the moment that Loretta Lynch, who was chosen by that Democratic president and who herself is an avid Democrat, understood that the president did not want Hillary Clinton perp-walked, Hillary Clinton being the choice for Secretary of State. Nothing that I said here, everything that I'm saying here is based purely on the incentives built into the system itself. I'm not adding anything to it. Now, you could say these people have a level of integrity that goes beyond what human beings typically have in this political climate. I have no idea why you would believe that, but okay. But tell me you can't see the problem here. We found a case where Comey said didn't exist, and Comey using intent. Intent is not part of the statute. He let her walk. He let her walk. Yes, there is an issue with him letting her walk. I have a great issue with that. I am not this person who likes putting people in prison, but I am this type who thinks that you should handle these things by the same standard. It is grossly inappropriate to let that woman walk and skate in the way that they let that woman walk and skate, while at the same time putting other people in prison for other things. Obama was putting people in prison for the Espionage Act, for whistleblowing. So I'm trying to get across this thing of, this is a big deal. This is not this minor issue that these guys are trying to make it out to be. And if you give any credence, or at least being fair, not necessarily pretending as if the Democratic Party in no way would ever do something like this. Oh no, they would never do such a thing. They're political actors, just like Republicans are political actors. Even if you're a Democrat, certainly you can understand this looks bad. This looks bad. Now, if you're also a Democrat and you're in this camp that Donald Trump should be investigated because of Trump and Russia, I massively disagree with you, but okay. If this looks bad, which it does, shouldn't this also be investigated? Meaning, shouldn't they also investigate what went into the Comey investigation? Meaning, what went into Comey not being truthful there? Again, from a prosecutor's perspective, if somebody is lying to you, something is being hidden. What are they hiding? You let the woman walk. Now, certainly Republicans are not crazy for thinking their political opponents will find ways to let somebody who's such a big Democratic contributor and big, no person in the Democratic Party. Certainly you can understand Republicans looking at this. They would think the worst, but they're not wrong for thinking the worst. because this stinks. Now, if you're okay with the Trump investigation, certainly you have to be okay with an investigation and determine whether or not there's something something that stinks here. Now, you can say Republicans are biased actors, and so you don't necessarily want them having a witch hunt. Fair enough. What about a special prosecutor? A special prosecutor to look into the case in the same way that a special prosecutor is looking into Trump's case. Now, if you're saying that Mueller is not a political actor, Mueller is just a gristle-nosed private eye who's looking into the case, and that there's no bias in him at all and everything else, okay, then you've set the precedent that a special prosecutor can be plucked that is independent and non-biased. What is the issue here? If that special prosecutor that's independent and non-biased is looking into the case where something absolutely looks like it stinks, what's the issue? House Judiciary Committee has filed for subpoena for information related, subpoenaing the FBI for information related to the Clinton investigation. How on earth did you let that woman off? Did Comey lie to us? What were the agents talking about? What was the issue with McCabe? What about the FISA abuses? Were there FISA abuses? Investigating FISA abuses. I like this on multiple fronts. A, I think she's guilty of sin. That's the first part. But B, I wanted investigation to the FISA abuses. I know a lot of lefties have taken the position that all of this stuff is okay because it goes against Donald Trump. I am not one of those lefties. I don't like the FISA abuses. I don't like this idea that they can rip somebody's life apart, just screw over the Fourth Amendment at a whim. 99.7% of the FISA warrants are approved. Like, that's mind-blowing. I mean, at that point, that's just a rubber stamp. They shouldn't even call it a court. Calling a court to some degree is a certain level of propaganda to give you this impression that there's some decision that's taking place. There's no decision taking place. There's an agent that wanted to rip your life apart, and there's a judge that's going to let him rip it apart. I want that scrutinized. I want that talked about. I want that investigated. That looks bad to me. The FISA court is a fig leaf. Ultimately, if they want to go after you, they found this kind of means that the public accepts of them ripping a person's life apart. Not to mention the parallel reconstructions, the way they go about these cases, using information that goes beyond terrorism, using that information to create cases throughout the United States. I mean, yes, I want that investigated. I think she's guilty of sin, and I want that investigated. This has gone far too long, so let me get to this part. House Judiciary Committee Bob Goodlatte subpoenaed the Justice Department on Thursday for documents regarding the decisions and investigation in Hillary Clinton's private email server, potential abuses of the FISA Act, Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act, and recommendations from the FBI's Office of Professional Responsibility to fire former FBI Deputy Director Andrew McCabe. Goodlatte, from Virginia, all right, fair enough, my hometown, or my home state, who has said he would not seek re-election in November, penned a letter to Deputy Attorney General Rothstein on Thursday, attached to the document subpoena. Goodlatte requested documents related to the Clinton email investigation and noted that only a fraction of those documents had been produced, with no documents provided related to the request on potential FISA abuses. Given the department's ongoing delays in producing these documents, I am left with no choice but to issue the enclosing subpoena to compel production of these documents, Goodlatte wrote. Goodlatte added that since the request for the Clinton email server investigation documents, the FBI Office of Professional Responsibility recommended the dismissal of McCabe, who was fired ahead of his retirement on last Friday, putting his pension in jeopardy. The recommendations appear to be based, at least in part, of events related to the investigation surrounding Secretary Hillary Clinton's email server, Goodlatte wrote. Accordingly, the subpoena additionally covers all documents and communications relied upon by the FBI's Office of Professional Responsibility in reaching its decision to recommend the dismissal of former Deputy Director McCabe. Justice Department spokesman Ian Pryor, in a statement to Fox News, said the Department of Justice and the FBI take the committee's inquiry seriously and are committed to accommodating its oversight requests in a manner consistent with the department's law enforcement and national security responsibilities. I have no idea what that means. Instead of using our time and resources to conduct oversight on pressing matters that actually impact our country today, like the Russian government's ongoing attack on our elections or President Trump's attempts to undermine the independence of the Department of Justice, Judiciary Republicans have chosen to issue a unilateral subpoena to acquire information related to Hillary Clinton's email. The priorities are upside down and out of touch with the American public. House Judiciary Committee ranking member Jerry Nadler, Democratic, responded. Here's the thing. Fact is, the polls of the American public believe she did break the law. So it's not like this is completely out of line with the American public. What's out of line with the American public is the public caring about this Russia nonsense. They understand it's a political bias. They may think that Russia had something to do with the election itself. You may have some hardcore Democrats who believe that Russia hacked us, whatever that means. But if you ask them, do they care? The answer is usually no. They have all sorts of other shit that's in their purview that they care about. The Russia nonsense is not on that agenda. Not to mention, you guys have worked assiduously at trying to manufacture evidence for 2 years, and the best that you guys have come up with were Facebook and Twitter trolls, half of which took place after the election. Look, my point is, if you're looking at this and you're a Democrat, certainly you understand that in the same way Republicans are biased actors, Democrats are biased actors. They're also hacks. Meaning there's never going to be a situation where Democrats would investigate Hillary Clinton in the same way that Hillary Clinton right now was able to escape, because Democrats aren't necessarily going to investigate her. The only chance that you have of getting an investigation into the Clintons or anything else is through Republicans. Just like the only chance of you getting an investigation done into Republicans is through Democrats. They're both political bias actors. It doesn't necessarily mean that you can't use one to get information or to attack the other. I mean, Republicans may actually be right on this. This is kind of the point I'm trying to get at. You can evaluate their report after they give the report, but at the very least, you should allow them or support them doing an investigation to something that looks shady. Now, the only out here is to say that Comey is just incompetent. It's possible. Is it likely? Is it likely? I support them doing an investigation. They should do an investigation. And I want them to look into this FISA warrant thing. I want the conversation in the media to be about the FISA warrant. Now, I know the conversation is probably not going to be that 99.7% are approved, but at the very least, I want it up and talked about. There will be some networks, there will be some newspapers that deal with this thing of, is this an abuse? Does America really want this kind of Stasi built into the government itself? Are we okay with mass surveillance? Are we okay with Big Brother watching? And mind you, Big Brother at times, if you fuck up, can build a case on you in secret and pass that information to the local sheriff's department in order to essentially put a case against you. Now, no, they're not going to disclose that the information came from a FISA thing, a secret court. But they will build up the evidence to make it look as if that trail existed prior, when in reality the information was under secret. The FISA thing is maddening and it's terrifying. And it's even more terrifying that the public looks at this and is okay with this. So, I'm going to end it at that. They're investigating. I've done part of this particular video on more than one occasion. But the fact that Republicans are actually doing this investigation, good. This is one of the few times where I can say, yes, I support this. I don't want to witch hunt. And all things being equal, I would prefer them to create a special prosecutor. So, that's where I'm at. That's where I'm at. Jamal does a great job with issues and sorting them out. Thank you, Edward. I try, man. Wesley Walker Jr. Thank you, Wesley. You're far too kind, man. I don't... You're far, far too kind. I'm not worth it. By the way, Wesley, I need your shirt size. So, guys, I am giving Wesley a free T-shirt. I've said before, on my Patreon accounts, I have an award, like once a month. We try to do this thing where we award a T-shirt to someone. In this case, I think everybody will be okay with me giving this one to Wesley. I think you guys will be perfectly okay with this. So, Wesley, I need you to send me an email with your size. I need your shirt size. Muller has a very corrupt past. You know, Muller is the one that was selling the WMD stuff. That's that guy. That's that guy. Hillary Clinton isn't a witch hunt, but Michelle Bachman. Balthazar 228. I don't understand. HRC isn't a witch hunt, but Michelle Bachman. I don't understand. I don't understand that one, man. I'm sorry, I don't understand that one. Oh, okay. All right, Wes. Yeah, Sam and Michael should themselves to be a little less politically savvy than I once thought. I'm not a witch. Oh, Balthazar, that's right. That wasn't Michelle Bachman. That was what is that lady's name? I don't think she's in politics anymore, but it wasn't Michelle Bachman. Now, don't get me wrong, Michelle Bachman looks like a lunatic, but this is a different woman. I know who you're talking about, but this is not Bachman. I know exactly who you're talking about. Tommy Salmons. I'm a libertarian, FI and Jamal Fair. Oh, thank you, Tommy. I try to be. Yeah, it's not Bachman. I can't think of her name, though. Christine O'Donnell. God damn it, I love my audience. Anna Stansell. Thank you, Anna. Thank you, Anna. She says, yeah, I don't know if you guys remember this. I mean, she had a campaign ad where she comes out and she says, I'm not a witch. Here's the thing. If you have to start your ad off saying, I'm not a witch, you failed at that ad. You failed at that ad. Totally failed at the ad. Yeah, that's so not going to work. I know you're talking about too. Yeah. She was on Mart Weiss, right, when he was politically incorrect. That's right, Zalcox. No matter how you cut it, Hillary won't be prosecuted because that will bring the whole house of cards down. Vinny Thrill. You know what's wild about that, man? And it's sad, but you might be right. How can you prosecute something if you yourself are doing that particular thing that you're prosecuting somebody for? Now, Republicans are bias actors. I don't want it to be a witch hunt. That's the catch. I don't want it to be a witch hunt. That being said, special prosecutor. And look, I take this from this pure perspective of there's something that stinks here. This one, like, if you find another case that shows that this was bogus, how do you how do you reconcile that with Comey coming out saying there is no case, it is everything about intent, and no reasonable prosecutor, and here I am being unusually transparent. Unusually transparent. It's fucking hilarious. Eric Holder didn't have problems prosecuting people for shit the Obama administration was doing. Yeah, I don't think they're gonna have issues with it. No, hypocrisy is just part of politics at this point. Stable genius progressive. Hillary sucks. Put her in jail. Sure, yada yada yada. I'm more worried about John Bowden being Donald Trump's advisor and him actually starting a hot war with Russia, Iran, North Korea, and sucks everywhere worse. Yes, I saw that shit last night. I was like, oh my god, that maniac was chosen for anything. John Bowden is a fucking maniac. It is terrifying that he was chosen. Like, it's one of those things where, as bad as Hillary was going to be, one of my biggest concerns with Hillary, that she was going to start a war. I thought she was going to start a hot war. That she was going to get us into a larger conflict in Syria, and that she may even start World War III with Russia. I thought it was a real possibility. If she's going to pull this, unipolar power shit and toppling democracies or toppling governments, even if it's not a democracy, I don't care if it's not a democracy, it's their government, then yeah, I thought she was going to start a war. John Bolton changes that equation. John Bolton, he is a fucking maniac. Like, if that is a guy who's whispering Donald Trump's ear, oh fuck, holy fucking hell. Yeah, he's terrifying. Former president and husband Bill would have gone down too, and that won't happen. D. Mardan. Well, look, if you only thing you need to do is look in the Clinton Foundation, and beyond just looking in the Clinton Foundation, Comey lied. Like, I think that's the thing. That's a mind-blowing thing to look at, to see him say what he just said, and then you reconcile it with the reality of Brian Nishimura was convicted for the same thing, and intent had nothing to do with it. Then what are you talking about? And what's wild about it, I don't remember anybody in the media challenging what he just said. Like, he comes up and says, and they come out like stenographers and just write it. If you ask the American public looks at her and says, the woman is guilty. Look at the polls. Don't take my word for it. It's not so much that I have a hard-on for putting her in prison. I have a hard-on for fairness. There's something fanatically unfair about that woman walking and skating in the way that she was skating, while at the same time other people being put in prison for whistleblowing. I mean, not just that. If I walk out here, say for the moment I travel to New York for a visit. Let's say I'm visiting in New York. If I have a bag of pot on my person, cops randomly stop and search people in New York. Just random. You're not doing anything. They're fucking over your rights. Stop and search. Now, 80%, I think it was like 80 or 89 or 90% of the people who were stopped and searched were either black or Hispanic. They weren't finding guns. It was like maybe 1% guns. They were randomly stopping people, and the overwhelming majority of the people they were stopping were black and Hispanic. I tend to be black. I'm part Native American, but for the most part, I identify as black, and if anybody see me, they would just say, there's a black guy. If I was stopped on some random stop, meaning I'm an American citizen, still, just being randomly stopped because you're being racially profiled, and they find a bag of pot in my wallet, say they even find a joint, they may be taking me to jail. Like, I'm trying to get across the scope and the gravity of things, and the massive disservice that this does if she walks. If you want to say that state secrets is not that big of a deal, fine, change the law. Change it to something else. Change it and say we don't necessarily care if people give away state secrets. Fine. Let Bryony Shamir out of prison. Let all those other people put in prison for similar items. But fact is, if you're going to have a law like this, but there's certain people that the law applies to and there are other people that the law doesn't, that's not a fucking democracy. That's not even a representative government at that point. That's something else. That's something else. Yeah, they should be a special prosecutor who looks into this particular case. And if that special prosecutor is actually right and is doing his job, he will see Comey right there in that particular moment lied. And he will start digging into why Comey was lying. What was the relationship between Loretta Lynch and Comey? And why did he feel he needed to say that? Why was the prosecution held in the way that it was held? Why did they come up and draft the release orders or saying that they were going to let that woman out before they even talked to her? Why did Stroits have anything to do with one case and the other case, while at the same token being over the top in regards to his hatred of Donald Trump? All I'm saying is there are extraordinary problems with this case. And even if you're a Democrat, man, I mean, come on. Have a certain amount of integrity when the way you're looking at this stuff. Certainly you can see the Republicans' side of this. Even if you don't believe that they're guilty, can you at the very least see their side of this and say, that looks bad? If I'm on the other side and I don't trust the other side, I see the other side as political actors in the same way that the other side sees my people as political actors. Why on earth would I trust this particular process that was completely done by Democrats and that seem to have let her off and pursue the case in a way that is not normal to the way typical cases like this are pursued? Not to mention you have the smoking gun of somebody being in prison for the exact same thing that she was guilty of. So, Jay Scott, I voted for Hillary. I don't care if she's investigated or locked up. Fuck her. That's hardcore, Jay. That's hardcore. Hard on for North Korea too, FTW. Yeah, man. Yeah. And honestly, that was the thing with Clinton. I had two main red flags for voting for Clinton. I wanted to vote for Clinton so bad. Like, I wanted her to say something that I was like, yes, I can cling my hopes onto this thing and everything else. I had two problems that I couldn't get past. She cheated Bernie Sanders. That was the first part. I could not get over that hurdle. I felt that was an undermining of the democratic process. You have a representative government. If they're cheating people who are actually trying to choose, then that's something else. Like that completely decapitates this idea of a representative or democratic process. The other part to that was, well, I guess there were three reasons. I thought she was going to start a war, a hot war, a large-scale war. I thought she was going to start a war. And three, I didn't think anything changed or anything would change if you continue to do the same thing that you've always done. I don't even think my ire here is for Hillary Clinton, if that makes sense. I think my pissed offness here is at the process itself on one side, and at this thing of a different rule set for some versus others on the other, and her being perp walked. I think to some degree in my head, almost like it's a balancing of the scales of sorts. It's I think if I'm psychoanalyzing myself at the moment, I don't think it's about her per se. I think it's about the system itself and about the way this thing seems rigged, both in the primaries and in the gears of government itself that's supposed to be this kind of fair and justice is blind process. So, yeah. She was never getting my vote. I thought Trump was a maniac, man. Yeah, I thought Trump was a maniac. For whatever people want to say about Trump and everything else, I agree that a lot of stuff they say about him is BS. And they're fucking hypocrites on most of that stuff. But I thought Trump was a maniac. And let's be honest, he is a fucking maniac. I mean, if you're talking about the people that he's putting in the positions of government, he's putting people in positions of government to destroy those positions of government. Like, it deforms the whole edifice itself. You're essentially putting billionaires and plutocrats in positions that are supposed to regulate billionaires and plutocrats. The environmental damage in and of itself. I mean, this tax cut. He's raising taxes on the middle class in order to give rich people a tax cut. And yeah, in the short term, people are getting a raise, a bit of a bump. But like 80 or 90% of the money is going to go to the top 1%. So, yeah, I have no illusions about Trump. And even with him hiring Bolton, again, I had no illusions about Trump. I didn't think he would go to Bolton. I mean, that's terrifying. I did think that he would be more conciliatory in some of these foreign policy things, like dealing with Russia and so forth. John Bolton gives a completely different character to the administration. John Bolton is fucking terrifying. He is absolutely terrifying. Jay and Lord of the Black Site, Warden in the Swamp. Yeah, John Bolton is terrifying. He is, man. He is absolutely terrifying. I have to be honest. There have been very few things that have happened. When Donald Trump got elected, I went through maybe a week of, oh my God. Now, part of that week, when dealing with Hillary voters, was just like, oh yeah. Ha! Told you. It was a week of that. But at a certain point, I steeled myself because I thought, yes, this sucks. This sucks greatly, but it was going to suck either way. It was a Hobbs choice. And there's going to be a lot of bad shit to take place. You can't bitch and moan about each and everything. That's where I took it. I was like, there's a lot of bad shit to take place. But on the second point, the bad shit that takes place has the potential for revolutionary change. Because if it's bad enough, and if it pisses off enough people, and if it's so over the top and so gross, maybe the public itself, maybe a section of the public, just a percentage of the public, will peek their head up and be like, oh my God, he's fucking us over. Now, you are getting somewhat of a backlash. I mean, all of these Democrats getting elected in all these other sites. Yeah, it's true, Doug Jones barely beat a pedophile. But many of the Democrats have been winning in these places. And I think a lot of this is some reaction to Donald Trump. I don't know what takes place in 2018. It is possible that they take the House and the Senate. It's possible. I mean, the very fact that we're having this conversation about it being possible shows to some degree this kind of backlash. But does that mean that lefties are going to take over? Or does that mean just corporate Democrats are going to take over? The potential was there. Whether that potential could be utilized or not is a second conversation. But my feeling was there is a potential for revolutionary change. If you get enough lefties, or if you get a lefty running in 2020 as the president candidate, you have the potential for amazing change. Fact is, if you have a Democrat in office that forces Democrats to represent who they are, from a political and philosophical standpoint, they may not necessarily even have a choice but to conform to whatever the president is pushing for. Meaning, if you had a Sanders or a Gabbard, Sanders or a Gabbard, their agenda, what they're pushing for, it's not going to be a lefty agenda. No, it's not. But it would be less hawkish. That's the first point. And beyond being less hawkish, what they're pushed for, policy decisions, are what they're going to put on the agenda for Democrats in order to do. Meaning, Democrats will have to some degree, declare their allegiance. Who do you represent? Do you represent your donors or do you represent the public? Because fact is, when policy starts coming up on the agenda that is motivated by the public, they would have to make a choice. I want to see them have to make that choice. Because fact is, I want there to be a clear distinction in the public's mind of, oh my God, these guys are similar to one another. I want the public to see that. I want the corporate Democrats to be standing out there in the weeds, not supporting policy choices that they say they're for. Yes, I'm for health. I'm for all Americans having access to health care. Yeah, but are you for single payer? I am for all Americans having access to health care. Yes, but are you for single payer? Or better yet, universal health care in general? You're born in as an American, you have access to health care. Congratulations. It's your birthright. Just like paved roads and electricity. Yeah. Iran conflict is inevitable. I don't know if it's inevitable, but John Bolton being in that position does not help. And understand, man, it's not just an Iran conflict. It's you have this. Look, any conflict with Russia is a conflict with China. For all intents and purposes, their military work in some degree of tandem. At least that's my hypothesis. Any conflict with Russia and China is a conflict with Syria. Can it also be said that any conflict with Iran is a conflict with Russia and a conflict with China and a conflict with Syria? Like, if Russia has a certain amount of dominance in their domain, does Iran fall under that umbrella? If the United States is going to attack Iran, it's probably going to attack Iran in the same way they tried to attack Syria, in the same way they attacked Libya. You pay terrorists to undermine it. Once it creates somewhat of a revolution, you come back and say, okay, now we need to help these people in the revolution. And then you claim that these are the real Iranians who are fighting this government. And you support terrorists to undermine the government. If they're looking for a reason to undermine Iran, that's the way they're going to start. Or at least that's going to be the strategy. As a Canadian, it's just so depressing to hear how adverse politicians are to universal health care. Stephanie Thom. Yeah, you have to understand, Stephanie, our politicians are bought. They're bought. It's one of two things. Either their workable point of view is just so happen around the people who they're in the room with. But my hypothesis is they're bought. People deal with things from an emotional level. Like when I am interacting with you, when I'm choosing to do something, those things are done from an emotional standpoint. It's the intellect that comes in and tries to explain the emotion. The intellect is usually lying about that stuff. Who the fuck knows where the emotion comes from? Ultimately, the person wants to do X. The person believes in Y, whatever. It starts with an emotion. Now, I say that, and I make that point clear. If you're a politician, and you need to get large sums of cash. Now, you need to get large sums of cash either from a few people or a lot of people. Now, if you get it from a lot of people, you're representing those lot of people because that's your power base. Those are the people who are giving you cash. Those are the people who are supporting you. If you're doing that from a small section of people, then that's your power base. But here you have somewhat of a dilemma. You have a power base of a very minority a minority group, a small group in the public, while at the same time requiring the vote of the 90% in order to get elected. How do you square that? How do you square that? If you're a Democrat, you call yourself moderate. You say certain things, you try to work around the edges, but you don't necessarily do anything that would adversely affect your donors because from your standpoint, it's your donors that get you elected. You have to walk that line. Now, the way they've chosen to walk that line is to use Republicans or playing off Republicans. So Republicans being batshit crazy helps them because they can move further to their donors because Republicans are just that much more batshit crazy. And they could say, look, I understand that those guys want to build 4 concentration camps. Well, we really only want to build 3. 3 is better than 4, right? So you should vote for us. And then the next year, Republicans are going to want to build 10 concentration camps. I understand that those guys want to build 10 concentration camps. Well, we only want to build 8. 8 is better than 10, right? And slowly it just moves further and further to the right, blackmailing you with a certain weird logic that only works if you're thinking about it from the standpoint of a few years. Universal health care. Beck Andromedans need it. Not just Andromeda. Yeah, all Andromeda. Healthcare for all Andromeda. Universal healthcare for all everyone from Andromeda. That's hilarious. I love an alien joke. I went into the conversation just randomly. Alright, I'm going to end this. I said I wasn't going to let this one get too long. Hey, by the way, somebody, I don't know if anybody's actually said this early on. Apparently, somebody gave me a shout out in a Jimmy Dore video. Like, they apparently paid cash and put a shout out of saying, get Jamal on your show. Guys, you guys are fucking awesome. Thank you very much. Like, I hear stuff like that, and I think to myself, I just do YouTube videos about the news that I like. That's all. I just don't with shit that I like. It's bizarre, that's all. It's just weird. Like, you walk in public and you just Joe, Schmo, whoever, and then you do videos and you just put your opinion out. And, you know, after you put your opinion out, you go use the toilet like the rest, like everybody else. You put your socks on, you get in an argument with your girlfriend, you come back and do videos, or your wife and you do videos. Like, it's mundane. And yet, people, don't get me wrong, it's work, but it's work that I guess I like. It's fulfilling to me. And so it's still weird to me, or strange to me that people respond to it, I guess. So, look, thank you. I guess that's my point. Thank you. Yeah, I enjoy doing this. And for all intents and purposes, I've always said my show is just me. And so, that's why it's, sometimes you guys will hear me talk about Star Trek. Other times you hear me talk about just random shit that happens. But I guess my point in this is, guys, I appreciate it. Thank you all. Thank you a lot. Let's see. Alright, so I am going to end this because I have like 3 videos that I want to do. I wanted to catch up from yesterday. So, guys, thank you very much. I will see you guys probably in about 15 minutes. Thanks, everyone.